I'm a few minutes early after having moved around my time quite a bit. I'm one of those weirdos that when my friends call me and say, "Hey, I've got X, Y, and Z going on, can I talk?" I will say, "Okay, yeah, let's talk." So I had to move the screen time around, and I know that it disconveniences everybody. You have my deepest apologies. I just had a friend that was having some issues and that had to be talked about. So I had to keep moving it around. So I'm almost talked out before we've even begun. And since this is December and we're trying to be kind to everybody, I'm not going to say any ugly stuff and name names of some of the stuff going on. But I did start thinking about the kind of liars there are in this world and doing a little reading about lying and what is motivating it. I think it could be broken down in two different ways. You could have people who are pathological liars. They lie for an end goal. They have goal. They have something in mind when they lie. It can be a really stupid or small goal, like making you feel bad, but it could be something major, like covering something up that's criminal. So you have all these people that lie and have no compunction about it. I don't have any kind of sympathy for people who do the pathological liars because they are doing that to manipulate people and cause all kinds of problem. Compulsive lying is a little bit different than that. And I think we're seeing some compulsive lying. Hey, Claire, I think we're seeing compulsive lying by somebody in our community. Compulsive lying is when you're lying and you don't even know why, and you're making yourself look bad, and people are catching on to the fact that you're lying. And it's like you can't help yourself, like you're verbal vomiting, like it's like scratching an itch. It's something you can't explain. You can't resist it, and you just keep doing it. How many people in our community have we seen do that? So those are the two types of liars I wanted to talk about today. Hey, Bliss. Either you're the pathological liar, manipulating the hell out of everybody around you, trying to get whatever going on. Are you the pathological liar? Verbal vomiting is a good way to put it. Claire, that's what I have to put it, because if I don't, I won't know how to describe it. Those compulsive liars, that's exactly what they're doing. They're like spitting it out all over the place. Oh, so there is where it is. And I'm sure you can put both those types of liars to the names of people in our community. Well, it's December. We need to start treating each other more kindly, because it is. But at the same time, we've got this crazy ass Josh Duggar trial going on right now. Josh Duggar trial going on for CP. And I saw a member who was rather angry at the fact that the Sun has a reporter there that is filing reports all the time. I've been shaking my head so much, it's about to fall off. Yes, Claire, it has been crazy. Why do you think I stopped and started looking up different types of liars and why you would lie and what the benefit is? I also don't understand. I'm just going to throw this one out there altogether. I do not understand what Michael Saltz was doing when he believed a compulsive liar and took a compulsive liar's deposition without vetting her at all. I thought that's what high-priced lawyers did. I thought that they didn't make mistakes. They vetted people. They knew who it was they were talking to. They could say, yes, this person is solid. Maybe this person shouldn't be believed. Somewhere along the line, he really dropped the ball on this, because had he said from the very beginning, this person's not credible, or I haven't vetted this person, we would be in a much different place in our community right now, instead of the constant videos she's doing. Used it to push. He knew he didn't. Only the depot against Swanson, in my humble opinion. Claire, I have been saying since the very beginning of this whole stupid thing that I thought that was their big thing they were after. They were after Swanson. That if they could get Swanson, if they could figure out how the lies about her got out, if they were through Swanson. That's what they wanted. That was the thing they were after. And I said from the beginning, it may have been what they were doing and everybody just ignored me, but he played the long game. He played the long game well, with the exception of giving some rather insane people a platform. Would we have even have heard about the compulsive liar had he not taken her deposition like she actually was somebody? Would we have heard about her? Probably not. She was small fish. She is small fish, Claire. She doesn't matter in the long term. That's why I'm trying desperately not to say her name. I'm just saying without a box of this stuff, without a box of Kleenex brand Kleenex at that. And this is made in South America. And guess what? This paper is like sandpaper. I can't hardly use this. Dia a dia. That's the only kind I can get here now. So without a box of Kleenex. Small fish. We don't know what's going to happen. I haven't even caught any of her crazy videos because by the time I hear about them, they're deleted. Plus, I was originally watching them and I decided not to. And I'm glad I did because just the time I clicked off her and decided not to watch any more videos, she made one dedicated to me that stayed up like 20 minutes. I never did see it. I don't care. Let her say what she wants to say about me. I know the truth about who I am. And that for me is good enough. And then she did one dedicated to Steve and Tina. And I believe the Steve and Tina one may have been a threat, somebody said. And then there was 2 or 3 other ones. And then all of a sudden they all disappeared. She is not known for keeping those things up any length of time. And I find that a little weird. Sorry, I'm trying to stabilize this. Stupid thing. Because I don't like the bouncing around. It gives me vertigo. So without a box of Kleenex has been losing it today because the Sun has had a reporter on the ground in Arkansas that is giving like hourly reports on everything going on in the Josh Duggar trial. She's rather upset about that and has mentioned it several times now that she thinks the person is breaking the law by giving all these updates. Breaking the law. Sorry, the silly part of me. I'm tired. I talked to my girlfriend for like 4 hours. So the Sun does have somebody on site there. There are a number of papers and outlets that do. And what's nice about the Sun, hey, Christoph Van, you're super duper confused about what? I think she'd just completely ignore her. And we should. Even with a vid drops, just like she's not even there. Bliss, that is the only thing that we could do. I've come to the conclusion that is really the best way to handle her, because if we treat her, I'm talking about GNAT, if we ignore her, she won't be getting the big feed, the thing that's feeding her and supplying her. She's not getting the attention. I think she's doing it for attention. I think she's a compulsive. It's just my considered opinion. Why else would she continue to come back with this stuff over and over and over again? Confused about Swanson, salty, KJ stuff. Let me see if I can give you a quick little breakdown of this. Okay. I was still friendly with her until May of 2020, when Steve McRae let me know that she was stealing some of my content. And there were other things that happened, but that was it. That was at the point I started paying any attention to any of this. She'd been telling me for ages that somebody named Steve was stalking her. And she accused Sherelle of a bunch of stuff too, which I know is not true. I knew then it wasn't true. So what happened next is there are a bunch of us in the anti-KJ community. We started calling ourselves KJ Truthers, that wanted her to be truthful about things rather than lying about them constantly. She'd been caught in a number of lies. She was caught in a lie when she stood me up and then told her supporters that her and I had talked and everything was cool again. That was a lie. I hadn't talked to her at all at that point. I'm sorry, my hair's driving me crazy again. she just would lie routinely like that. She would lie about Steve. She told me that Steve had sexually harassed her, that they'd been close together and he'd sexually harassed her. She told me 2 or 3 different versions of that story, one of which I have in screen caps from the very last time she told me about Steve reaching out to her, and all that was going on. She was telling a lot of lies about Steve, about Tina, about all of that. Shortly after all of this, in May and June, she got a restraining order against Steve, and there was a hearing, and then there was a NDA signed between the two of them, and the restraining order was dropped. The temporary restraining order was not made into a permanent restraining order, because my understanding is that without a box of Kleenex could not prove that Steve was some kind of big threat to her. I think that's a good idea, Christoph Ann. So then they were at a stalemate. She continued on her way, and we kept saying, you're lying about this, you're lying about that. And she kept on. October the 30th, 2020, Tati Westbrook filed a defamation of character lawsuit against her. Without a box of Kleenex had been talking about her for quite a while. She talked about her on Pathos even. She had a thing on Pathos about the Westbrooks. She had made allegations about James Westbrook killing his mother. She had made allegations about the vitamins that the Westbrooks were selling, a bunch of different things. I can't tell you the number of lies that were told. Hey, Spicy. There were a number of lies being told about the Westbrooks. So the Westbrooks filed a lawsuit against her in the state of Washington, which necessitated her having to hire a lawyer in Washington, having to pay for this lawyer in Washington, and to go on from there. So we started seeing declarations in this lawsuit, and a lot of nasty back and forth between Salty and her attorney, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown went to town. The motions were pretty ridiculous from KJ's side. It was just some of the most demented ravings. I'm surprised that any of them actually made it into the court. And Salty started taking depositions of the case. He took one from a lady named Lori Ann, who lived in Washington State, who was, I don't know if she was a KJ mod or just a KJ friend. She was one of those. The next thing you know, he's taken another one. And the name listed was Natalie Kennett. And I was like, who in the heck is Natalie Kennett? This is somebody I had never heard of before. None of us had ever heard of before. And we were trying our darndest to try and kind of keep picking each other's brains until we figured out who Natalie was, who Natalie Kennett was. Nobody had ever known her. I got to turn this down. This is making me crazy. I'm not being blasted. So Natalie Kennett was this lady that gave this big long deposition about a box of Kleenex, and it sounded pretty awful. Basically, she identified herself as a sufferer of DID, dissociative identity disorder, and said that she had been manipulated by Katie Joy. Go figure. Go figure. You got the two types of liars manipulating each other, or so it seems, allegedly. At least that's the way it's reading from here. So you got the both of them, and then suddenly, in the spring, it was announced that the lawsuit settled. Basically, we do not know the terms of the settlement at all. That was never released to the public, as far as I know. I may be wrong about that. Where the hell did she come from? So weird. Bliss, oh man, I got hair on my lipstick. She literally came out of nowhere. We were all, when the deposition dropped of her, the Natalie Kennett deposition, going, Who is this person? We were all trying to figure out where she'd come from because nobody at all in the community had ever heard of her. Not in the KJ community, not in the KJ Truther community. Nobody knew who this woman was. She just appeared out of nowhere and gave Salty her declaration of wrongdoing on the behalf of Katie Joy. And I remember being at least a little suspicious of this when all this went down because none of us had ever heard of her before. And she started to be part of the KJ Truther community. She came on Twitter and started talking to all of us. I talked to her for a little while myself. I thought she seemed sweet and naive. But at the same time, I didn't really trust her because it's my observation that when you have people that have serious mental conditions, or maybe not the most stable people, that you don't want to be having long philosophical rambles with them about whatever. So it was really surface, my relationship with her. But she fell out of nowhere and was claiming that she was being harassed and attacked and all kinds of things that I now have to say, I don't know if they're true or not. She said so many things, Natalie did, in that short time, that when it came out that she had lied about everything, I personally felt rather betrayed. You know, I can handle just about any truth, but I can't handle someone lying to me. That's just how I am wired. And that's why the point where I just fell apart at KJ was when she lied about having contacted me, had never contacted me, had never apologized for behavior, and was busy telling all of her subscribers that she had. You know, you can tell me anything, but don't lie to me. You lie to me and you're dead. I'm one of those people. And I know the Bible says we're supposed to forgive, but there's a lot to be said for forgiving and keeping distance from someone you know is problematic. I've learned that through the years. Forgive from the distance. And some people trusted her immediately. Bliss, that was the problem because Mr. Saltz had taken her deposition, a lot of people trusted her instantly. I figured she was just another secretive KJ friend. I sort of trusted her some a little bit. And then when I found out she was lying and that whole thing went down after the settlement where she and KJ and others went on Kay Baxter's live stream and said it was all Steve and Tina and Aaron, I was like, no, it's not. And realized at that time that it was very likely that Nat was a KJ plant. She was working with KJ in some way, shape, or form. I still believe that. Nothing she said or done makes me believe anything different. It's interesting that whenever there's a lawsuit around without a box of Kleenex, we have these things happen. People trot out of the woodworks. They make all kinds of crazy claims. We saw that with this case, with the Tati Westbrook one. We're seeing that with this Todd Chrisley one. I had no idea who she was. Came out with declaration. Next day, everyone was hashtagging I Stand With Nat in live chats. I was like, WTF. Bliss, it was so strange. Yeah, the Kay Baxter stream was insane. I stayed out of that and stayed away from that and not said anything, but I saw that. And that was just crazy. Kay Baxter was letting both women flap their gums and say things that were clearly not true and was defending and acting like, oh, yeah, this is all 100% true. And she kept saying she had all this evidence against Steve that she could show, true ball of wax. And by that point, I had already stopped following or talking to True Ball of Wax because she had done some defense of the Duggars. And you know me, I was writing for Pathos about these subjects for almost 10 years and a couple of years before that. So this was a world that I knew intimately from having lived it, having experienced it firsthand, having come out of it. The church I was going to revered the Duggars as just the most wonderful people on the planet. So to hear Waxy defend them was out of this world for me. And that's pretty much the same reason why I started I stopped going on live streams with Little Red because Little Red started trying to defend them at various times. One day she brought on somebody that had lived in the same town as the Duggars, hadn't been raised there, had moved there as an adult, who was singing the praises of the Duggars and saying that everything that Katie said was wrong, which I happen to know that a lot of the stuff Katie was saying was actually right. There were a lot of things she said that we talked about in private conversations, because there's a lot I've known about the Duggars for years. Because let me tell you something, there's one thing I know: religious people will gossip just like anybody else, maybe more, because they don't have as many things to amuse themselves. They think TV is evil, novel reading is evil, movies are evil, everything that's fun or enjoyable is evil. So they don't have a whole lot of ways to interact and distract themselves. So gossip is really big there. Gossip and prawn, beautiful prawn. So those things are sinful, but that's what they do. I think Kay Baxter's stream was helpful to show where everyone was. It was helpful to show where everyone was. And now we've had True Ball of Wax saying again and again and again, oh, I've got all this evidence. I've got all this evidence. We've yet to see one receipt, one proof, one anything from True Ball of Wax. In fact, Waxy has disappeared. Nobody seems to know where Waxy is. She doesn't seem to be around much. She's only in a couple of people's streams. She doesn't make videos anymore. I don't know what is going on with her. For the longest time, it's the only one who didn't care for Waxy. Then her mask really slipped and everyone saw her. Bliss, no, I didn't like her from early on when I realized she was a Duggar defender. Because I am never going to defend a lifestyle that treats women like possessions and garbage. Things to be used and discarded. Anybody that approves of that is automatically on my S list. And it's not my Santa list. It's my sangria list. It's not my fun list. It's my you know what list. So the minute someone starts Duggar defending, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm done. So she said all this and she hasn't defended it. So after Kay Baxter's stream, Nat just disappeared. Nobody had heard from her. Disappeared. She sent me one message apologizing for lying about everything. And I just hit block. Because like I said, I don't have any patience for people that lie. Tell me the truth, even if it's an unpleasant truth. And that's a problem here because so many people lie, as I was talking about with the Tiger King second season, episode 2, where they're talking to all these Ticos, and one Tico in particular was lying his ass off. And I could just see it and hear it. I could tell it. It was like, oh my goodness, this guy is full of it. He's one of these guys that will tell the TV people whatever the hell they want, whatever their narrative is. You're not going to go ahead and say whatever the truth is. Even though Carol Baskin is now claiming that her husband has been found alive in Costa Rica by Homeland Security. I still see no proof of that here. Nobody gossips about this stuff. This is a place where people will turn people in for a $5 reward, okay? So I had big doubts about that too. And just like I had big doubts about Natalie's story. So she comes back here in the last couple of weeks, just about the time that Without a Box of Kleenex is headed to depositions in the in the Todd Chrisley case, motions to dismiss, other motions coming down in that case, all in November, some of which have been pushed back. So here we have Without a Box of Kleenex and her various trial thingies coming up. Lawsuit thingies. I'm not going to say trial because there's no trial. And here comes Nat to save the day. So Nat comes along, and now every day has a different story, a different person she's blaming, a different person she says is threatening her. Some of her videos she's posted threaten other people. I know I've turned her in to YouTube a number of times now, and I want them to do something about her. She's clearly not a well woman, whatever reason she's doing this. And whether or not she's connected to Without a Box of Kleenex, she is clearly a disturbed young lady who needs treatment. I would like to see her receive treatment somewhere far away from the internet. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen next. I think it's likely she's going to continue to make all these stories up. It's going to get worse and worse, I think, especially now that, and this is the worst thing in a long time that Without a Box of Kleenex has done. She shut down her Twitter and wiped it. That was kind of interesting. And then she came back long enough to say that Nat was lying. Surprise, surprise. I think we all figured that one out, honey. But here's where she did the awful thing. She told everyone that because Nat was in the UK and she was in the US, and the FBI said there was nothing she could do. There was literally nothing that she could do. So I think when she said that, Nat is just gonna go off the deep end of doing crap and showing up and making up more and more excuses. I mean, what is she gonna say next? Is she gonna say that Biden did it? She's gonna say all of that. Anyway, she has said a pile of times now that Clark Swanson was the one who was the puppet master forcing her to do things. Well, here's the thing. The stuff she's showing that was supposedly Swanson was not even real. She had all these emails she kept showing that had that day's date on them that had clearly been manufactured as a result. It was his email address, but I think she made up all those emails because the dates were off. There were a lot of like red flags if you took her video and you showed it down and looked at it. You will stumble more videos. Sue him, I probably will, and guess what? Do I care? No. Do I care? Like I said earlier, if you want to make me go nuts, lie to me. Lie to me and let me catch you at it. And I'm like, I may forgive you, but I won't let you anywhere near me. I'll be done with you. And if you're lying Tico trying to take my money, oh, heaven forfend. I will not use you, and you'll not make a penny off of me. So Miss Sue, yeah, I probably will trigger a ton of future videos. She can threaten to have me beam to Mars or whatever it is she's threatened to do to people. Turn me into the FBI. Big deal. There's been an FBI file on me in the past because of my father and other to do with NLQ too. So, it's not like this is brain surgery, and she has no way of actually doing anything to anyone. It's just all lies. I think that the key here is going to be to completely ignore her. I still have theories about how she's probably linked to Without a Box of Kleenex, because the thing is, anytime there's any kind of anything to do with lawsuits and Without a Box of Kleenex, here comes Nat to save the day and distract everybody. So I think that's what she's there for. She's for distraction, and so that they can all claim to have had threats, death threats. Yeah. My neighbor, the one I've had to do all the crap for, wanted me to drive her Friday, San Jose, 5 hours away, hang around while she had a doctor's appointment, and then drive back. Girl, I have trouble even walking. There's no way I can sit somewhere for 5 hours driving the car. I said, why don't you fly? It's very cheap to fly from Tamarindo to San Jose and then fly back, or take the bus if it's that big of a deal. It's actually, if it's that long of a ride, I really want somebody else to do the driving. Did that $40? Yeah, $40. I don't know what's going to happen with any of them. So my advice is ignore Nat. That's the history with Nat. She popped up. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody still knows for sure who she is. She says her name is Natalie Kennett. Oh, realification. Thank you, my yarn fund. I'm still trying to plan a trip to the States and buy more yarn, even though I haven't used my last bits. Um, and I'm running into Omicron. I'm running into that. I was just watching CNN before I came on here. They're going to make new entrant requirements if you're flying in the US. And I'm not happy about that because one of them is a 24-hour COVID test. That's way more expensive here than the ones I've been getting. I was just about to ask, does anyone ever know who Nat is, who she says she is? Bliss Chris, I have not been able to find any I had not been able to find any trace of her, or any real trace of her. And I've done some pretty deep dives looking for her recently, looking for that name, looking for all that. And there's nothing that I can say for certain is her. It's like without a box of Kleenex and we were both working for Pathos. And when she first came on, she was using her real first name, her real last name only, not this silly Katie Joy thing she's using now. We all had our real names on our posts. Any social media you had was in your name, or it was like your first name connected to your column name, that. And you could look anybody up and find out anything you wanted about them, including whatever the trolls are saying about you, because I still laugh. The trolls still like to say that I am not living in Costa Rica, which makes me laugh. I got days when I wish I was in the States. I got days when I'm like, oh, hell no, I'm glad I'm not in the States like yesterday, except that we had to drive by here on Monday where they shot up the whole beach with people on it. It was pretty crazy. She is Bliss Chris, and it's all her, nothing to do with, yeah. I am not sure. So to this day, I'm not going to say that I don't think she's connected to KJ because I think it's a possibility. Anything's possible. But I look and say, you have to look at these people and their situations and say, who has benefited from this? Who gets the most benefit from what this person is saying and doing? And almost always the things that Nat is saying is giving a benefit to without a box of Kleenex, almost to a man. Even when she says something about KJ, she's doing that. She's done this sort of thing before. Hopefully, when everyone ignores her, she moves on to annoy other people. Sue, I hope that is true. I hope she can, because it is, it's just weird. It's just weird to have to deal with a liar like that. And I've been in a lot of internet communities through the years under a whole variety of names until I started writing for Pathos and started using my real name for everything, which just brings with it its own problems. You should see my public email box. You should see some of the stuff I get. I have to weed through the weird stuff just to get to the few little crumbs of goodness there, like production companies that want to talk about doing a documentary and interviewing me for that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. So if Natalie Kennedy is her real name, she has ruined it for all time and eternity for what she's done, because anything ends up in the internet and people will come up. I had a very deranged person 20 to 25 years back that was chasing me around. We were both in a fandom, who's told a pile of lies about me that are still online. I could never have those things taken back. This woman was clearly nuts. She died of cancer not too many years ago, and maybe 10 years ago. And it was pretty traumatic, some of the stuff she said to me. She was the one that gaslit me, who was my friend, and tried to make me feel lesser because I chose to get married instead of becoming the starving artist and the addict Garrett that I had always wanted to be. I always said I was going to be. I always said that was what I was going to be when I grew up, and instead I got married. Got married, and she was so jealous of that. She talked about it constantly, how much she wanted to be married. We were both in our early 40s then. She was unmarried, no prospects anywhere on the horizon. You got a date. Um, you heard that is really her name. That might really be her name, but anybody who looks her up is going to see this stuff forever. It's like the one that tries to spam me 100 times a day on Twitter. When you look up that person's name, you see that they also have a reputation for doing horrible stuff. There are quite a few people in the States that have kept track of this person. Yeah, spicy. That was my horrible thing. I got married. And the funny thing is I was the first one of my girlfriends to get married at 26. We were all working together. I was going to school, getting everything lined up, and just not paying any attention to getting married. And I told the story the other day. It's a crazy story. Um, when I met my husband, I'd just been dating a fairly wealthy guy that owned a oil line, an oil pipe supply company of some sort. He was very wealthy. And after my divorce of my first short marriage, my mother had pounded in my head, it's just as easy to marry a rich man as it is a poor man. So I only dated rich guys there for a while. And they were awful. This last one was so awful during the time I dated him that when we broke up, I told a girlfriend of mine, I said, the next nice, normal guy that asks me for a date, I'm going to go out with him. I don't care if he is a street sweeper. I don't care if he's homeless, living under a croaker sack in the park. I'm just going to go out with nice guys for a while and not look for love. And I talked to my friends about it. They're all like, oh, I can't wait to get married. I can't wait to get married. I said, well, I don't really care about that. I just want to finish my degrees and do what I want to do, get myself set up, do better than I am now. And I was in the process of doing that when I met my husband. So I met him because he had signed up for the Army, the delayed entry program in his 30s. He was not a young man, and he had all these degrees and just had a failed business and couldn't go in the military right away. They couldn't take him because the language program he was enrolled for started every 6 months, and we had to wait for the next start date. So we had 4 or 5 months to kill. Well, he took a job at a convenience store very near where I lived. I was in there a lot. It was my favorite place to grab a bottle of white wine and go on home. Well, I kept seeing him there. He kept flirting with me and kept flirting with me, and never asked me out. And then his boss said, he really likes you. He likes you a lot. Said, well, he's got to ask me out at some point if that's the case, if he really likes me in that way. And he did finally. And we started going out. So I started going out with a guy working at the convenience store who told me he was going in the military in 3 months. Or was it 4 months? It was 3 or 4 months. And I said, this is a good palate cleanser after the rich guy. I'll just go out with him, have a good time. He'll go to the military and we'll shake hands and he'll depart. Well, that's not quite what happened. At the end of the 4 months, we were both pretty connected to each other. It took us about 3 more years to get married, but we did. We finally did. And I have to tell you that this boss of his that connected us was a transvestite. He was always in the paper for getting arrested for doing transvestite things in City Park and things. In Baton Rouge in the early 80s, you could get arrested if you were behaving like that and wearing women's clothes. So he was always getting arrested. So we like to tell the tale of how we got married because the transvestite fixed us up. So there it is. There's my big scandalous marriage story on the heels of all this Natalie and Without a Box of Kleenex stuff. Without a Box of Kleenex has come back on Twitter, and she's saying a number of silly things. And she's calling out various people. She's trying to say that we were all connected with Natalie and we were all harassing her with Natalie, which I don't know about anybody else. I can't speak for anybody else but me. The most I ever did with Natalie was talk to her a little bit about very, very simple things that didn't have a lot to do with KJ. So we were hardly hatching some master grand plan to take down KJ. I don't know who would have been. I know Tina and Aaron well enough to say I'm pretty sure that they weren't doing that. And there are a number of other people in the community that I know well enough to say, no, none of them were doing that at all. So that is all a fairy story. And I guess that I am not going to get around to Josh Duggar this trial. I just wanted to say a few little words about that because I've been updating all day while my girlfriend and I were talking. The Sun has somebody there that is following all these stories. I guess during the breaks would be my guess, or maybe from their notes. And someone's upset about that. That is what journalists do. That is what real journalists do. They sit in courtrooms, they take notes, they do a ton of research, they don't just throw things out there. And that's what's going on right now. The judge ruled and said that all those prior bad acts by Josh, particularly with his sisters, are admissible. They can be brought in as proof of previous deviance, I guess you'd say. So that's allowed. That's going to be allowed. And Anna Duggar's there with him again. I don't know how they picked a jury in one day. That I was surprised about that. I heard that Emily D. Baker said she didn't think they'd get done in one day either. It's such a big trial. I'm shocked that they did get through jury selection in one day. That's usually not how it goes, but that's what they did. And they're hearing testimony today. The defense is trying to say anybody else could have downloaded that. It has been questioning the original officer that picked up on the fact that somebody was downloading CP. And they pretty much shot that one completely out of the water. They're given some crazy details. They were saying that when they showed up at the car lot, that Josh was completely calm and that he asked if they were there for CP. That was one of the things that he asked, which was pretty bizarre. And so the agents didn't know what was going to happen. They showed up in plain clothes and bulletproof vests because they had no idea. And it's common practice not to identify the exact reasons for the investigators to be there. Just said they were with Homeland Security. So this is all coming from Special Agent Faulkner, who's testifying to everything that happened when all this went down. So the rapid pace they're moving, I really thought this was going to be one of those trials where there was going to be 100 motions, 100,000 objections. There was not going to be all this quick, but they're moving that thing through like the speed of light. I'm seeing all these reports being filed by somebody there. And they're going over every detail very curiously. It looks like this morning was the testimony of Amber Calmer with the state. She was with the state law enforcement and with Gerald Faulkner. My understanding, too, is while Anna is there, they asked her to leave while they were showing the CP. No realification. His trial is ongoing right now. They picked a jury yesterday, which, having sat in a bunch of trials and looked at trials and sat on juries, I'm shocked. The trial of the murder of my friend, they took 3 days to do jury selection, even though the trial was concluded in 3 or 4 days too. But it still took a while, and because they had to pick people who hadn't already preconceived a notion about whether the cop had murdered my friend. I have more time to watch YouTube now. I gave up my Twitter addiction. Sue, I'm about to turn mine off so I can finish my damn book. I can't get my ass in gear. And I told my husband, I got like, I have got writer's block, and I know what it is. It's YouTube and Twitter. I think I'll turn on Twitter for a while and see if that happens. Realification, I don't see how they could not find him guilty. The state has the state, it's Fed. The government has so much overwhelming evidence, and right now they're laying out how they identified him as the target. And it sounds like it's pretty much an open case. I know one of his defenses was going to say that one of two employees did it, but it's been proven one of the employees was not there, and the other one wasn't even an employee at the time. I want to say one of them was in jail, but I could be wrong. I could be very wrong about that. Can't wait to see what Bobby Holt is going to say again, or even Jim Holt. It's been rumored for years that Jim Holt caught him looking at porn on a campaign computer. That has been the rumor. Who knows how true it is, but it explains a lot if that would happen, because Josh was tossed from the campaign. There was a lot of talk about sending the camp. The Holts broke off the courtship between Josh and their daughter. I do watch some U.S. trials now on YouTube. I do find the process interesting. So it is interesting when you're looking at trials in other countries. I know I have, and I've asked a buddy of mine about 10 trillion questions. He was a crown prosecutor in Canada. So it's interesting seeing how Canada does it, how we do it, how other countries do it. Here it's a crazy cluster F of stupidity. I've never seen anything like it. If you ever need a rabbit trail, a crazy rabbit trail, look up the Ann Bender trial. Ann and John Bender were Americans that came here to Costa Rica. They bought a slice of land south of here near Dominical, just due east of Dominical, in a place called San Isidro General, I think it was. And they had all kinds of weird stuff happen. And then finally, her husband ended up with a bullet in the back of his head, and she claimed it was suicide, even though the trajectory of the bullet, where it went in at, he would have had to dislocate his arm to put the gun there and shoot himself in the head. So she's been tried at least 3 times here, maybe more, because in Costa Rica, it's not they try you once and whatever they find is whatever they find. It's they can try you as many times as they feel like it. How do you spell the last name? Just like it sounds, Bender, Bender. There's been some things about them. I read a book where they were pro Ann Bender, and it was ridiculous. One of Ann's complaints, and it's a valid complaint here, it happens a lot, is that when they came in to investigate John's murder, because they had this fabulous, totally roundhouse, is that the police department stole both of the Sub-Zero cool freezers. They stole all the Tiffany lamps. They stole the $3 million in loose gemstones she had. They took everything of value, and that is very common here in Costa Rica. If you tangle with the law, they'll come in and take your shit, whether it's appropriate or not. So I believe she must have killed him. She was alone with him in the house. The bullet wound was in the very back of his head. I mean, try to shoot yourself at that angle. Try to manipulate your arm. It's not possible to get the exact angle of the bullet. What happened was they convicted her in the first trial. They've tried her several times. She's gotten off a couple times. They convicted her once, but because the way the trial system works here, the justice system, they can just keep trying you into infinity if they want. And they've tried her, I think, a total of 3 times now. And I believe she's free right now. I don't know if she actually inherited all of her husband's millions or not when he died. Watching one currently, I'm answering his wife, how he thinks he is going to get off is something else. Sue, I don't doubt that at all. I sometimes will watch 2020, or what's the other one? There's another one. 2020 or one of the other ones, there's all these true crime type shows on US TV here that I will sometimes watch. And sometimes you're watching those things. Sorry, I'm all belching down. You're watching these things and you're like, what on earth is going on? Why did they even think they were going to get away with that? How stupid can you be? And you just have to wonder what's going on in the mind of somebody. I will never understand people, not as long as I live. And God knows I have certainly tried. I've certainly tried. So I've always been fascinated what flips somebody from being a normal card carrying citizen to being somebody that bumps off their spouse suddenly. Dateline, yes, Dateline. Dateline's the other one that I've watched a fair amount of. And I had to laugh. There's been times when I've called my adult children and said, what you doing? Watching Dateline 2020. Okay, watching Dateline. And my husband, his favorite was To Catch a Predator, which was always interesting, but kind of sort of read to me like entrapment. I don't see how they could have gotten away with not winning by claiming they were entrapped, because they really were. William Argy is his name, and he was asking his friends to murder her. Law and Crime Network, have it live each day. So that's cool. I don't have that here. I do have Investigation Discovery in Espanol and English. I can turn it. But I've been very upset this week because Cabletica, my cable company, decided in their infinite wisdom to take away the English option for the Paramount channel, which always carries Universal. I'm sorry, Universal. That carries all the Law and Order SVU. So I have to give them a Law and Order SVU, or I have to watch it when it comes on NBC, which I don't even know what the schedule for that is. Oh, YouTube channel, Law and Crime. I'll have to take a look. Because I do like some true crime. That used to be my jam. I used to read a ton of true crime books, but not lately. I'm reading some strange ones right now. And looking forward to the one by Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, because I want to see what he has to say. It's got to be interesting. So anyway, here I'm rambling. I've told you guys the history of Nat, and it'll probably earn me another ranty, threatening video, but I don't care. Go right ahead, Nat. Knock yourself out. Have a blast. And vent as many stupid things about me as you can, please. Because to me, that's actually kind of funny when I start hearing the rumors people have said about me. Yeah, so there's that. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. I'm definitely brain fried. I talked to my girlfriend for 4 hours because she was having a crazy crisis. Because I was going to do this at noon, and I had to keep moving it back, moving it forward because she kept talking and kept talking. But I'm one of those people, when my friends calls me in need, I will listen, however long it takes. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. I'm fading. I'll talk to you later. Have a great day, and try not to watch any videos by her because they're ridiculous.